Okay, so now we're moving on to our next piece of artwork, and this time we're going to be Braque inspired. He tended to do a lot of still life, so you can use that as your inspiration. Now remember, again, it's inspired by, but you can do your own thing. It's more cubism. His style tended to be quite muted colours, so you've got sort of just browns and greys, and he uses his pencils, which we will be doing. But if you want to go with much brighter colours, if you want to use collage that from magazines that have other things printed on it, then that's entirely up to you. There's no right or wrong, as always. This is one that I started earlier, so you can get a kind of idea of where we're heading towards. So I'll start again and sort of show you how I've begun to do this one. It's not completed, but you can get an idea of where we're heading to. So we start off with just a piece of paper. It doesn't have to be a white background, it could be a coloured piece of paper, that's fine. And then what I want you to do is just rip out or cut, it's up to you, some random shapes. I'm going to rip mine. I quite like that slightly torn effect. So I'm going to rip that one there. I'm going to rip the edge. You can cut them with your scissors if you like. It's up to you. There we go. And I'm going to place this one down here, and it is pretty random. Try not to overthink where you're going to place your bits of paper. Right, get your glue. I'm using my Pritt stick, so it's just happen to have it at hand, but if you've got the little glue that the PVA glue that I provided, you can use that if you want. If you are using that, I recommend using a paintbrush to put the paint down. Okay, sticking that down, and I'm going to put another piece up here. Try and keep it relatively random. Okay, and I'm going to put another smaller piece over here. This bit. I'm going with the muted kind of shades, but as I said, it's entirely up to you what you want to do. I'm sort of limiting my colours slightly to put that down, I think, to just a couple. But if you want to go, really wild and wacky, you can. Maybe limit it to start with to only 2 or 3, so that you don't get too lost. Oh, what was that? Something on my piece of paper. Oh well, never mind. Okay, and now if you want to draw something freehand, then that's entirely okay. If you look at his work, you don't have to worry about being realistic or exact at all. But sometimes it's helpful when you're starting off to use something as a to work from. So I'm going to be doing a still life bottle like this. I'm going to sort of work out sort of approximately where I'd like it to go. I'd like it to be here so that the image overlaps slightly some of the pieces of paper that I've stuck down. And I'm just going to slide my carbon paper underneath. Because I'm not going to be drawing for too long, I'm going to try and keep it fairly simple, so I'm not bothering to tape it down. You can do if you want. So I'm doing the outline of the bottle and a little bit of where I can see the light is hitting the bottle here. So I've just penciled that in, and the shape of the label, and down this side, and the glass. Going down the glass again, putting in some of the marks where the shadows in the glass are. Right, I've done it all. Let's have a quick peek. Almost. So I've traced over this one before, which means it's hard to see what I've traced previously. There we go. That will probably do me. Okay, so there we go. We have our basic shape to work on, and then you want to get your pencil. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start doing some shading, and it can be quite random. Don't try and always have to overthink things. If you can see here, what he's tended to do is sort of shade as if you're shading behind something. So he shaded here and there to make this area come forward. I'll show you with this. So I'm going to shade behind the bottle. And I'm going to put down quite a bit of pressure to begin with here, so that it's quite dark where the bottle is. But and as I shade out, I'm using less pressure, so it becomes paler. Like that. Okay. Shading up here. See, I'm doing it quite quickly. You can take more time. And what I want it to do is to fade out quite a bit. So when I want it to be particularly light, I hold the pencil further away, right at the end. That prevents you from being able to put too much pressure on and makes light shading much easier. The darker you want something, the closer to the end you need to hold it, so you can be more precise and put more pressure on. Okay, as you can see, I've left this little bit unshaded, so you get, you know, a bit of contrast there. I'm going to, if you look back at the picture, we've got quite a lot of shadow on the glass here. I'm going to put some of that in. Going dark and getting lighter. Okay, and again here. And then coming down here to where the shading was on the bottle, the shadow. Just getting lighter, altering that light and shadow. Now I'm going to shade underneath here. So whenever you hit a different piece of paper, you want to change something to get those contrasts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shade quite dark underneath the paper, that bit of paper where it hits, and then it's going to get lighter again. Now I'm working on top of a wooden table, and as I shade, some of the lines from the wood is coming through, and that's really nice actually, and that's something you can add to your shading. When if you've got a very smooth table, you could find something maybe that has something to it. So I have an iPad here cover, and it's got a bit of a pattern on it. So if I was to put that under here and shade this bit in, I'm not getting a smooth, it's like frottage. Frottage is effectively just it's a rubbing. It's just like a rubbing, and that's actually quite nice. You get different textures coming through then. So have a think about if you've got anything lying around that has a texture to it that you can use to make it more interesting. I come back to this bit with the wood. The wood works quite well, in particular because if you think in terms of a bar or a restaurant or something a bit rustic, you've got the old wooden tables that they would have drunk on. See, that's really effective actually, working over that wood. So let's see if we'll find something. Right, I think I'm going to, as I did here, as you can see, I actually cut a piece now. Now that I've got an image on here, I'm going to work and put some additional collage in. This time I'm sort of planning it a little bit more. Put that there. And get my ruler. I'm going to put some random lines in. A few random lines is always good. Put a random line up the top, and it's going to start on the piece of paper, that additional piece that I put up there, the collage. There we go. So you can see that I've started here, I've gone to the end. So you know, always think when you hit another piece of paper to maybe do something slightly different. That's it. I was putting my there. Right, I'm going to tear this. You can cut, you can cut or tear, it's entirely up to you. And glue that bit down. There we go. And as you can see with this one, I added some type. This was just a random piece of bits that I got from the magazine, from a newspaper. You could make it more relevant to the picture if you've managed to find some type that said something, like on here you've got bar written there, and ale. So you can use something relevant, but it doesn't really matter for this. So I just chose a piece of type. I'm going to overlap that. I'm not going to put it so that it's actually on the bottle. I'm going to just put it over the bottle in a random-ish place. And I'm going to use the carbon paper, because that means that the type will be nice and accurate, and also quite dark with the ink from the carbon paper. Makes a nice mono print. There we go. You could, you can print it using the carbon paper, or if you could actually cut the pieces out if you wanted to and actually just stick them on. It's quite fun if you look through a newspaper and see if you can find something relevant but maybe a little bit odd, a bit quirky. This just happened to be the first thing I picked out. Or if there's a typeface which is particularly nice that you like the look of. Okay, just going to go over the top of that just to work in. Okay. And I'm going to pop some grapes up here. I'm just going to do these freehand, because they're just some little circles. Musical instruments were very popular. So if you could do as Braque did, he did a guitar. If you had some music paper, you could put that down underneath it. I'm shading behind the grapes, but I'm also going to sort of just go over it a little bit as well to darken them up. Again, you don't need to worry about being realistic or too careful. They were quite graphic, really. And then I'm going to start off quite dark, get it a little bit paler as it goes outwards. And I'm going to put in the sort of shape of like a bowl or something. Not worrying about being too accurate or careful. I'm going to go really dark behind in this little section there. Dark behind the pot. And then I'm going to do really dark up where it hits the next little piece of paper. So if you kind of try and think in terms of whenever you hit a different piece of paper or a different shape, to maybe change your style slightly. You're mixing things up. I remember when in his drawings, shading doesn't have to actually go anywhere, it can just stop. So you can do some shading and it just peters out, it just fades out, that's fine. Don't feel you've got to take it somewhere. When you're shading fairly something slightly more pale, if you're going really dark, you can obviously just put a lot of pressure on straight away, and it will. That's fine. You keep going with it. When you're shading and you want it to be reasonably pale, you want to control the shade and the tone. It's obviously as you're shading, sometimes you can see your pencil lines are a bit obvious. So that's why you need to keep it very pale, and then gradually go over and over it to darken it up slightly, and it also helps get rid of any of the pencil lines by keeping it really light. If you start really light, you won't get those pencil lines, and then you just gradually increase it. Because when I'm shading, I'm actually sort of doing it in a slightly circular fashion, not going backwards and forwards, it's a slightly circular movement. So you get the idea of the adding the grapes here. So I'll move on to the glass a little bit. I'll come back to my picture just to help me light. I'm going to do this bit quite dark, but I'm going to stop when it hits the paper. And I think maybe see if I can find some print to add. Right, just going to choose some random print. I'm going to. Oh, looks quite. It's Adnams Brewery. It's actually something to do with beer. I'm going to cut out a random little piece of paper. You could randomly stick it down, or you might want to be a bit more precise. Again, when you're cutting things out and you're playing with bits of paper, and cut bits out, see how it goes. Trim it a little bit more. Don't expect, you don't have to just cut it out and right, that's what I'm stuck with. You might want to move it around, see where it's going to go best. I quite like it there. I'm going to stick that bit on there. Now, because the wood is coming through, I'm actually going to, I'm doing a bit more of my shading. I don't want the wood there all the time, so I'm going to put something underneath it to stop that frottage effect. I don't always want it. Put in a little bit of random shading. Just because they did that. Obviously it's only inspired by, if you can do entirely what you want with your picture. It's just helpful, particularly with something you might not have done before, to have somebody else's work to work from, so that you don't get too lost or overcomplicate things. I'm just thinking, should I put something over here? I think I might put something behind. I could go for a completely different piece of paper. I'm going to still keep my things like maybe slightly limited. So that's going to go down there. Actually, I'm going to cut this one. So different texture. Just give it a go. See how I feel. Or maybe I would like to do some type. Cut a piece out and see what I think. See which I prefer. Maybe the same kind of shape. Oops. Right, which do I prefer? That one. That one. I don't know. I quite like both, to be honest. Oh, actually, if you look, you've got kind of curvature there, which if this carries on, sort of mirrors that curvature, which I quite like. What happens if I maybe start it? Yeah, actually those two. I'm going to do that. You might be going, no, that's awful, don't do that. But, well, never mind. So, yeah, so don't always go into things with a definite plan, because you might just find something that you didn't expect. Well, I didn't plan for that sort of curvature to go around, but it works quite nicely. Something like a portrait, or something very realistic, then yes, you need to sort of plan and know what you're doing, but the idea of something like this is to sort of just go with the flow. More organic process. That's not bad at all. Slightly annoying mark there. Yeah, I don't know what that came from. There must have been something on my rather messy table, which just goes to prove, try and keep your workstation a bit tidier. It is helpful. Right, I'm putting my iPad underneath it again like that to get that frottage effect. Might not be quite so noticeable on my visualizer, but I can see it a little bit. Do this line dark. And dark, getting paler. Over this side. You might notice that I sort of flit around from one section to the next, just the way I work. I tend to sort of see a bit that I want to work on and I'll go and do that, and then I'll see another little bit that I want to work on and I'll go do that one instead. Everybody works in different ways when it comes to art. Well, if you like to really work on one section at a time, that's fine. I tend to work on things kind of as a whole. Doing lots of little bits all together, and then it gets to a point where I look at it and I think, right, I think that's probably finished. I think most people probably do work like that, in that it gets to a point where the basics are all down, and then you start working back into certain areas little bit by little bit until you feel that it's completed. Right, I just did a little bit darker here, taking a nice straight line up. Just sort of doing a little bit of random colouring, really, little bits of random shading. I think I'm going to go darker behind the glass. Not all of it. Maybe I'll carry on with that sort of slight curved effect. I don't want to do a hard pencil line, so I'm just sort of work it in gradually. Not sure I'm so keen on that little section there. Luckily it's not too dark, so I can use my putty rubber to get rid of some of that. Putty rubber, it's more gentle and less damaging for the paper than normal rubbers. Okay, so hopefully you get the idea of what we're going for. This isn't a particularly busy picture, not compared to some of the others. You see this one, there's quite a lot going on here. You can see you get the sense of the guitar, but you know, this is cubism, it's kind of broken up. So, you know, you don't have to worry about doing things precisely. You can go with style, cut things out quite loosely. You've got the sense of, you know, mugs and bottles and things up here, but they're not particularly precise. You've got little bits of type going on here. It's not necessarily particularly clear what it says. You've got pale bits, very pale type here, much darker there. So that's what you kind of are keeping in mind. Maybe I'll put some more type in, but do it paler this time. I'm just going to have a look through and maybe see if I can find something. Type I might want to use. Could actually just use the type itself if you wanted to. why not? Stick that there. Right, I'm going to pause now and continue work on it for a few minutes whilst I look through my piece of paper to find a typeface that I like. I think I might put that on here somewhere, but a little bit paler. This is very dark and easy to read. Let's put something slightly less obvious, maybe in the background somewhere. Okay. So I found some typeface I want to use, and this one is quite relevant to the alcohol involved. I'm going to pop it so that it comes around about the top of the glass, overlapping the picture slightly. So there we go, around about there. And rather than using a pencil, I'm going to use a biro pen because you get a slightly sharper line. And I'm going to just go around the edge of the typeface. It's a little bit small, to be honest, a bit fiddly. Bigger typeface would be easier. And I started off by pressing reasonably hard, but I'm going to see if I can get it to fade out slightly by doing it a little bit lighter. Hard to tell when you're tracing how accurate it will be. Probably easier if you just use a few large letters. Tempting to do this fiddly little one. Let's have a look. That's not too bad. Quite pale, not too dark. And I think I might just go over the first little bit. So there's more contrast between the first few letters and the last. Maybe we can get a bit paler. I'd quite like, if I don't actually have any to hand, but if I had some music sheet paper, I'd probably add that somewhere. So you get the idea of the wine, the song and the wine. Homage to all those French artists in their cafes, little bars. Really, I need to stick something over here to hide that bit of paint that went on there. What can I use? So I might try and find maybe a slightly different piece of paper. Right, so far I've used 2 different colours, and then I've got some of the type. Might get too busy if I use another piece, but I'll give it a go. I don't have to stick it down. I just left a bit of type on there to see what kind of effect you get from that. There, don't like that. No, actually, I don't think I'll introduce another colour. I think I will just stick to what I have, possibly type. But perfect for that. Well, good thing about using the a paper background, coloured background, rather than actually painting it in, is that you can try things out more easily by cutting bits of paper out, sticking them down, not sticking them down, seeing how you feel about them, and then removing them if they're not quite right. So if you were painting the background in, and the separate bits, which you've kind of done it, you're stuck with it. Okay, so I'm probably going to leave my picture there, to be honest. Not as busy as a Braque, possibly, but actually I prefer it to be a little bit less cluttered as such. I might come back and fiddle with it. It's one of these things that you can come back to quite easily and look at a different day and be inspired to do something else. I already said that I wasn't going to carry on, but actually I've already seen something I'd quite like to do, which is just to break up the white a little bit by doing a bit of darker shading there. Probably will draw that across a little bit more, make it a little bit more rounded. So you get the sense of the bottle shape, which would be dark on both edges, and as you come in towards the centre, you make it lighter, because obviously the bottle is rounded, and if you think in terms of the light hitting the front of the bottle, so dark coming to light. Yeah, actually quite like that. I might do a little bit at the top just to round that bit off as well, but it's not supposed to be realistic drawing, too realistic, so I'm trying not to put too much detail in. There, something good like that. Okay, so that's our Braque inspired, and Next I will be doing a Paul Klee inspired piece.